Oh, good afternoon, everybody, on this lovely, glorious, sunny Nottinghamshire day. Welcome to the Economic Development Asset Management Committee meeting. Minutes last meeting held on the 28th of July. Are we happy that it's a true reflection, those that were here? Yeah, thank you. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Butler replaces Councillor Colton, and Councillor Wilmot replaces Councillor Zadrozny for this meeting only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Declaration of interest for members and officers, disclosable pecuniary interest and private interest, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. No, that's none. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4 then. Who's speaking on that? Is that you, Matthew? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to introduce the report is to brief this committee on the Council's support to businesses and its partnership with the D2N2 Growth Hub, and details the work of the Growth Hub and the work that has done over the last number of months during the pandemic. And also we've listed within the report the support that has been made available to businesses during this period, and ongoing proposals for the Growth Hub to support business in the same way that it supported business throughout the pandemic. What we're also proposing within the report is to seek approval from this committee to continue with the Growth Hub and the expansion of the Growth Hub, and also that highlights how we will do that through the various costings and taking additional grant funding, but also the opportunities that we can lever through the D2N2 partnership, and the work that has been done there. The report as well highlights how we're going to work with the vice chairs and the chairman of this committee with regards to supporting businesses, and building on the relationships that we already have with the business community and with some of the organisations involved in supporting businesses moving forward. The recommendations are outlined on page 12 of this report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I propose, and can I have a second, please? Second. Thank you very much. I open up then to comments or questions. Kate.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Welcome this. Happy to support it. Just a couple of comments though. It's just a little bit disappointing. I think actually there's very few resources by comparison to some other areas being put into this. I don't know whether any of you know, it's going back eons, but actually I used to work in business support, and one of the things I do know is the value of actually going out and actually helping businesses through crises intelligently and with some thought and strategy, and with the appropriate kind of professional people to kind of help them through it. And I think really if we're really going to help business, it isn't just about the money, although of course the money is very important. So I just think, that kind of tailored out there kind of business support, I think we really do need more of it in this county. And whenever this comes up, particularly because it quite often used to come to policy committee, I used to ask about SME. SMEs are actually the lifeblood of our economy, and more people are employed in SMEs than any other business in the county. And it just seems to me that actually this could be a lot more ambitious. Although it's good, I think it could be more ambitious. What it does as well, though, it demonstrates the complexity of the grants and the loans and the support, doesn't it? At the back, but flipping it. Okay. So just one or two particular questions. Sorry, I'm going a bit thinking. Okay, again, the numbers, I won't go through the numbers, but they're quite kind of small numbers. I think, where am I? This is now in paragraph 17, just down from the top of page 10. Small scale funding can make a big difference to smaller scale micro businesses' stability, which is not in great supply. And that makes my point exactly. You don't need masses of money. I just think you need more, and it needs to be carefully targeted. And I think that that will be really good. And at the top of page 11, in paragraph 18, there's a list there of engagement with some sub-county business groups, and there are some real gaps there. There's nothing in there, for example, at Broxtowe. And I know there's a history there. The previous previous kind of Conservative MP didn't support the bid, which was a bit disappointing. So I realise there's a gap there, but there are some gaps there, and certainly under 19, when you're talking about chair and vice chairs of committee, it would be good, I think, for you to involve more members in this, because we know local businesses, we know where the difficulties are, we know where people might kind of need some help and support. So I think, although I'm sure the chair and the vice chair will do a really good job, it shouldn't stop there, should it? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, before I bring Matthew in on that, I just want to make a couple of points, really. Okay, and in terms of what you said, I absolutely, totally agree with you that we can and should do more. Okay, so this was basically a legacy project beforehand, and asked to renew it and to keep it going. I've made it very clear to the people that are actually doing the work, i.e. going out and seeing businesses, I don't expect to see business as usual. I expect them to go above and beyond what they've been doing beforehand, and that I will be judging them on their performance when anything else comes forward. So it's because it normally goes to the same people every time to do it. I don't believe that is always a good thing. I think they have to sing for the supper. So I'm very keen that the officers monitor it very closely and get every penny that we can out of that. So that's first and foremost in terms of my leadership towards this moving forward. So I hope that reassures you. And I think absolutely right. If councillors know of businesses that could benefit from this, please let us know, and then we'll make contact with those businesses to show them about it. Yeah, I've got a couple of things in there just to make sure, but I'm sure that this goes out to all businesses, not just those that are members of the Chamber of Commerce or Federation of Small Businesses. It's any business within the county. So I want a reassurance on that. And this is in addition to what the districts and boroughs do as well, because I know they work really hard with their business support. So I just want to get a bit of reassurance on that as well from Matthew. And then the other reassurance really for you and the members of this committee, that it's county-wide. There's no area that's been left out. There's no area that's had any more than anybody else. It's been distributed as it's been taken up. Yeah, and again, that's a reassurance for me that that's how it will always be. I don't like the idea of it being spent more than anywhere else, unless that's where the need is. And that's where the people have applied. If people don't apply, it's very difficult to stick with that. But if they do apply, then they go through the criteria. So if you could just reassure everybody on those points, Matthew, that'd be good. And then we'll see who else has got a question.
Thanks, Chairman. Just to, I guess, reiterate what the Chairman has said there. In terms of the list, we have a significant list, and we've arranged to meet with a whole raft of different organisations to start the engagement and understand some of the issues, working with the vice chairs and with the chairman of this committee. And I would wholeheartedly agree, that we want to ensure we capture everybody. So if there are gaps, please feel free to feed those into me and my officers, and we can make sure that they're picked up as part of that wider engagement. And yes, would encourage, and I'm happy for members of my team to work with colleagues here to go and see those various organisations to work with them.
Yeah. I'm going to drop Mike Turner in it a little bit now, because you might not know that as my vice chairman, one of my vice chairmen, Mike has become the sort of, in inverted commas, business engagement champion for Nottingham County Council. So Mike is actually attending business club meetings. So if you just want to briefly tell members what you're doing in terms of that, Mike. So this is how we're also getting the information out to people. Sorry for dropping in it, should I?
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, initially we're still in fairly early stages, but I've started the discussion certainly with the officers, with Jeff George now liaising on a weekly basis, and his team that will be on a monthly basis. But we're going around all the business organisations, business forums, business clubs, certainly the smaller ones. Personally, it's been focused up in North Notts, as you can imagine. That's where I'm from. Some of the other team have been doing work further south, but we will spread that out as we go along through the year. So the next step is to develop a clear plan and a clear strategy for how we get to where we want to be. We know where we are. It's in some of this report. So some of the common themes that are coming from the smaller business clubs like a Retford or a Gedling or a Worksop, rather than a regional one like the Federation of Small Businesses, is taking your point, Kate, with the very small business support. Certainly in things like grants, there might be a minimum limit which is far higher than what some of these companies need. So that will be one thing that I'm going to be bringing as a question to how do we make sure we are better able to support some of the micro businesses, if you like, and some of the sole traders. On the more regional discussions like Institute of Directors, Small Business Federation, East Midlands Federation, then I'm still in process of speaking with them. I've had some initial discussions, but we will get out as a team to talk to them. I've got absolutely no problem at all with engaging with other members and other councillors, particularly if it's in their region, or get them involved. But that's roughly where we are at the moment. In terms of the report itself, I mean, I obviously welcome it. I mean, some of the numbers are quite staggering, over £500 million of loan support. Looking at sections, paragraphs 16 and 17, I would just comment that sort of 16 identifies some of the areas where some of the financial help is starting to come to an end, and these may be issues for some of the businesses, but also due to some of the COVID activity. I've certainly experienced some companies that are seeing high levels of growth that they find difficult to manage, where there's a different type of support needed. But one of the areas in paragraph 17, which I interpret as sort of how are we going to bring to life what we're going to do to help the business community, is maybe we need to just talk about bank relationships. I believe that in the past, we as a county council, we've had some relationships with the major banks. I think banks are, by the very nature, over the past couple of years, they've been loaning money that is not maybe secured in a way that they would have perhaps wanted it to be. And there may be pressure on some of them to start calling things in. And I think that as well as just helping support small businesses through giving them opportunities to work with banks, I think there's maybe an opportunity there for us to help maybe just shield them and protect them a little through relationships with those banks too.
Thanks, Mike. Do you want to answer that one on the banks then, particularly?
And only to say, Chairman, that we're picking up that as part of the wider stakeholder engagement strategy that Mike has just outlined to colleagues.
Brilliant. Anybody else got any questions? Councillor Shaw.
Just picking up on what you said earlier on about the boroughs and district councils administrating work. Is it possible to outline the related support given to businesses across Nottinghamshire and relate this to the committee geographically where the most money is being spent? Because you did say that it's been spread evenly. Is there a possibility of getting that through to the committee to see demographically where it's been spent in
it's in the document, Councillor Shaw.
Yeah.
It tells you where it's been spent.
Yeah. Also, in Nottinghamshire businesses, there needs to be support to take advantage of the new opportunities, such as the Freeport, and I appreciate all that as well, and the high impact of that development. I appreciate that the outline business case for the Freeport is being submitted and has agreed policy from here. The committee last week, the policy committee last week, there was a bit of a worry. The policy committee that the Freeport simply relocates jobs rather than creates them. Can I ask for details of the associated high impact developments? How confident are we that that major hub will be much needed infrastructure will be developed? Will it happen? Also on bottom of page 10, paragraph 17, I noticed that it says here to exploit robotics, automation and data and digital developments. Is that going to impact on the jobs that we are actually trying to propose to get through? And is it just going to be labouring jobs that we'll end up having rather than high skilled jobs and attracting high skilled businesses in?
Okay, thanks for the question. Did you get them all there? I think in terms of the your concerns about are we just moving jobs, I think that is something that the Freeport and the whole scheme of it is absolutely fully aware of, and I thought we made that sort of clear at when you asked the question last time, to be fair. But you know, I'll let the officers answer on that. It's not just a blind, yeah, we're doing a Freeport and anybody can come in. It's about us encouraging the right kind of industry to come into that area so that we can promote the kind of jobs that we want to promote, i.e. high skilled jobs, and get the maximum benefit from it. Otherwise, what's the point in us doing it? So do you want to come in on that, Matt, please?
Yes, Chairman, absolutely. The Freeport, as was discussed at the previous policy committee, is about attracting inward investment from other areas, not from this area or from, in certain instances, the UK. They're looking for international investment as part of that massive development. So that's the expectation there.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, can I ask a supplementary? Do you think then that Britain's exit from Europe has hindered that particular inward investment?
I don't think that's a question they'll be qualified to answer at this point. Nobody knows what the impact of coming out of Europe would have completely anyway. But, and this isn't really the forum for that. This is about what's in front of us and the paper that's in front of us. Happy to ask any relevant questions. Have you finished? Yeah, okay. Are you happy with the answer in terms of the kind of jobs it will attract so that it's not just going to be in? Or do you want to ask another question on that? Because I'm keen that we don't keep getting the question at every single committee meeting that you're actually satisfied with the answer. If you're not satisfied with the answer, then now's your opportunity, because this is the forum to do that.
Well, I think that there was skirting. We haven't actually nailed down what the jobs. And you look here on paragraph 17 again, skills, training, recruitment, but there's no basis behind that. Are we going to just have skills training and recruitment in and around the area of the Freeport, or is it going to spread out to the places like Ashfield?
Well, for a start, Ashford is quite well strategically placed for a Freeport where it's going to be. You're only talking about coming down the M1 a couple of 3 junctions, whereas if you represent where I represent, for example, Newark, it's a lot further to get there. So actually, you're better strategically placed than where I represent. Also, those are to in Bassetlaw. So, I'll let you come to your own conclusion on that, really. But the whole idea of the Freeport is it's part of the big picture as well. It's part of the corporation company big picture. It's part of the HS2 big picture. These are all big links that if it all comes off, and it is if it all comes off, it's going to be massive for Nottinghamshire. You're talking about HS2 bringing in over £9.5 billion worth of investment. £9.5 billion. That's all coming into our region. Yeah, and it's about maximising that, and that's what it's all about for me. Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come in. Can I first of all say that all the businesses that I've been involved in and talking to, they've been very, very grateful for all this work that both the county and districts have done. They're very commendable, and they're saying they're very, very grateful. But of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has threw up a lot of challenges, as we all know. And in Appendix B, it outlines the significant support given to the businesses across the county. This includes over £500 million in loans given to hundreds of businesses in our county. The residents in Nottinghamshire also enjoyed close to £5 million in discounts under the Eat Out and the Help Out scheme, if you remember. And the hospitality sector was the hardest hit by the pandemic, so this support was welcome. Now, the question is, do we have any figures on how many businesses in Nottinghamshire didn't make it past the pandemic? I know that sole traders based at home were especially vulnerable, as they didn't qualify for many of the government grants, as they didn't pay business rates. Did many of the sole traders reach out to the Growth Hub? And what continuing support can we give them as the business rate payers of the future? Thank you.
Matthew, you okay?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So in answer to the question, the figures are laid out in the report in terms of the number of businesses that the Growth Hub has reached out to as part of the performance and the contacts that they've had as part of their performance measures. So we do measure performance in terms of contacts with local businesses. In terms of any figures around businesses that have not made it through the pandemic, I haven't got those figures to hand, but I can certainly bring something back as part of this committee.
Well, I think if you just distribute it out to them, then they can do with it what they will. Okay, happy? Anybody else got any questions or comments? Okay then, well, it's been recommended and seconded. All in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us then on to item 5, developer contribution strategy. Sally.
Thank you, Chairman. The purpose of this report is to bring to members of this committee a draft revised developer contribution strategy, and we're seeking your approval to go out for consultation, a wider consultation on the strategy. The County Council has had a developer contributions strategy in place for many years, and it is timely that we refresh and revise it because there's changes in legislation, changes in guidance, and it's appropriate that we look at it again with our new administration. The purpose of the strategy is to ensure that we set out very clearly when we are talking to the district councils and developers that we are very clear about what county council infrastructure we need to provide, and we do expect contributions from developers to help us provide that infrastructure. And over the recent years, we've had some notable successes, and we have provided a number of new schools such as Hawthorne Primary School in Bestwood and the Rosecliffe Primary School in Rushcliffe, and we've across the county we have provided new classrooms and other extensions on a whole raft of school sites. So this money coming to us from developer contributions is an important part of the money we use for providing those facilities. And it's not just education, it's also highways, it's also waste facilities, it's book stock for our libraries, it's a whole raft of things that are contained in the strategy. Unfortunately, developer contributions, they are a contribution to our capital works. They don't provide the full money, but we are able to match developer contributions with other grant aid. So we make any money we receive go as far as possible. Any money that we do collect has to be spent where it is collected. So money collected in Bassetlaw will not be spent in Rushcliffe. It will be spent on projects in appropriate projects in Bassetlaw that are related to that development. As I said at the start, it's appropriate that we revise and refresh it. So we're seeking your approval to go out for consultation with districts, with members of the public and developers on a revised strategy, which we will then bring back to you following consideration of any comments we receive, and hopefully this committee will endorse it and will then recommend to policy committee that we adopt the new strategy as council policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Sally. I think from my point of view, this is where we've taken a step forward in terms of making sure that we get the money we should be getting from the districts and boroughs when there's a development in that area. And the way I'd like you to think about this, because I know there's some double actors in here, and I know as a county council we have responsibility for schools, we have responsibility for care homes, and we have responsibility for other things that we have to do. But they're ours, as in districts and boroughs and the counties people. Yeah, they're your children, they're your adults, they're your everything. Yeah, and it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that the money's drawn down so that we can have and build our schools, that we can build our care homes, and we can do the roads. So it's really important that we get that message across. That's the message I'm giving when I go and see all the districts and boroughs economic development chairmen, to get across to them. Yeah, we are here, all of us, to serve those out there, and that's a really important that we understand that that we do draw the money down. So if you have influence in your boroughs and districts, that you really encourage it to happen, because it's really important. Because often, yeah, we don't have enough money to build the school. We have to get that money in from elsewhere. Yeah, and it's really difficult sometimes. So can I just get that message across, please, for you to take back? Any questions and comments, please? Kate.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more, Keith, with that.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, Kate. I was going to say messed up. I haven't. I propose it. Can I have a seconder, please? Reserve the right. Thank you, Reg. Well done for spotting. Kate, sorry.
First things first. No, I couldn't agree more with your earlier comments, Keith. I suppose just a question, because one of the things that, and again, I'm not a twin hatter, but what the message I constantly get is actually the developers always do their very best to actually pay as little contribution as possible, which is, I suppose you can see that, you know, they're trying to make a profit and all the rest of it. But actually, it seems to me that quite often the influence that they have actually is substantial, and quite often goes against actually perhaps the good of the wider community sometimes, particularly when it talks about some of the services that the 106 or the SIL funding is meant to provide. And just to look at this again, I'm looking at 2.4 in the yellow pages. It's on page 32. It lists the planning obligations only be sought when they are necessary to make development acceptable, directly related to the development, fairly and reasonably related to scale and kind of development. I mean, it's just so vague. To me, it makes that really difficult to do, as I think you were alluding to earlier, the developers to actually argue that they don't have to pay very much. So there's that. I mean, whether or not can you share those concerns and whether there's anything we can do about it. Just a couple of quick questions on the back of that. One thing I keep getting asked, or I have been asked in the past, I keep getting asked, is whether or not 106 or SIL contributions can go towards contributions towards setting up GP surgeries, because that's something that actually there's a real need for, certainly in my division, and I think that's probably replicated elsewhere. It's not mentioned, social care is mentioned in here, but not. And I suppose the other thing I wanted to ask as well is, in terms of SIL and 106 and working with the districts, who I know all have a different flavour in terms of the way they negotiate these things, is one better than the other in terms of getting really good contributions? Is one fairer, one better? Is SIL an improvement on 106?
I think the difference between the SIL and the 106, I get corrected from 106 is specifically where the development's taking place. SIL can be used anywhere within the district for the development of the district to reduce the impact of that development. Widens out where 6 has to be more. Not all councils cover their case, but the last meeting.
Yeah.
Not all councils have gone down that route. I think Nottinghamshire District Council was the first of the SIL process. There's advantages to that, and there was disadvantages to that.
Yeah.
But it did give the council a lot more flexibility how we spend the money. But the reality is as well. Sorry, the reality is as well is not all 106 ever get. It's not 106. You've got it. It's there forever. There is a time limit for where it has to be spent as well. So it's really important that we do actually, you know, make sure that we're on the ball with that, and the districts are on the ball with that, and they draw that money down and start to use it. And that's what this is all about, really. It's about creating that atmosphere, creating that relationship with the districts and boroughs, giving us a bit more teeth so we can say, look, you know, you really do need to make sure this is part of it, because is that balance. You know, developers are developers. They want to make profits. They have to keep their board members happy. But actually, if you're going to build in Nottinghamshire, in Newark Sherwood, in Bassett Law, wherever, yeah, then you've got to contribute to the impact that development will have, and that's what it's all about. It's contributing to the impact it will have. More strain on the roads, more need for schools or places, whatever it is, and that's where we've got to make sure that we're on the ball in terms of asking for it. Does that answer your question as part of that, the SIL and the 106? And then I'll bring the rest on for somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
I think no comment.
I keep forgetting this is televised, by the way, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got
Okay.
they got the intelligent. They missed the intelligent bit. It was the rest of it they didn't get.
Yeah, it is my sort of general concern that actually, if developers are building a development, there needs to be a fair sum of money to actually put back into you know, if the whole thing is going to work. I do know of cases where actually the developers made almost no contribution, which makes it very difficult sometimes for the school places, you know, for the roads, for the highways, and actually that just feels as if the emphasis is always on the developers and the control they have over this, rather than actually the community need. That was just my feeling.
Yeah, I'll leave you to do the technical side then.
Thank you, Chairman. I would say Councillor Goerling's summing up the difference between 106 and Sild is very good. So you get top marks for that. Councillor Fowle, you refer to the 3 bullets in paragraph 2.4 about planning obligations should only be sought where they are necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms, directly related to the development, and fairly reasonably related in scale and kind to the development. Those are the legal tests that we have to follow. So we have to follow, the districts have to follow, and the developers have to follow. Because if a developer felt that what we were asking didn't meet those tests, they would challenge us. But myself and a whole raft of team of colleagues working on developer contributions, and indeed colleagues across the authority, when development proposals come forward to us, we are looking at them very forensically to say, is there an impact on county council services? Should we be looking at requesting contributions? And the tool that we use to do that is this strategy. So if we're asking money for school places, we use the formulas that are set out in the strategy. So we have got the justification why we need to ask for monies, because if we don't provide that structure, then we get challenged, and developers will say, well, we're not you don't need any money, we're not going to give you any contributions. So we challenge, we provide the evidence base, but at the end of the day, it's a contribution. We do negotiate, and we colleagues across the authority, our bottom line is we want to ensure we get resources in for the county council, and that is our starting and our finishing point. And we will always ask for as much as possible, and unfortunately we don't always get as much as we would like, but we make sure we start off asking for as much as possible.
Just to bring something on as well, if you look at 1.5, it just says about the fact that this is only our influence. You have the districts and boroughs that do their bit. I don't know if it answered about the GP surgeries. My understanding is, because GP surgeries tend to be businesses, private businesses effectively, yeah, I don't think that that's part of the old thing. But however, when I was health scrutiny, one of the big things about having a big development and building a GP surgery there, it's all right building a nice building, but if you haven't got the doctors to put in there, there's not much point having it. So there's a balance between availability of doctors and things like that, as well as where the money comes from to build that surgery. Is that right as well?
Yes, there's always conversations, whether the conversations at the county council's level or the district council's level, as to what other things would be appropriate for Section 106 money, so that it's always a live conversation to see what else should we, the collective we of both districts and county councils, be asking for from developers.
Just a quick supplementary. I'd be really interested to know how much contribution you ask for and how much you actually get. Do you keep a record of that?
That's a very easy question to answer. Yes, we do. We have that information. So if members are interested in seeing that information for their patch or their district, we have that information, because we ask for we do ask for, as I said, the maximum we can possibly ask for. And sadly, what we actually receive is never as high as that. But we do have those figures.
I think that'd be very helpful, Sally, that we can pass it out to all members, and maybe I don't know if there's a table of which districts are particularly good at giving you the money and which ones aren't so good. That might be helpful. Then members can go back to their districts and boroughs and say, come on, we've got to build these schools, we've got to build these care homes.
I would urge some caution, because obviously developments happening at different times in different places, and there's different needs. So it's perhaps
It's not black and white.
Yeah, and it's perhaps not the best course of action
Yeah.
to compare one with another.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting figure is the amount we ask for and the amount we actually get. Is
Okay.
That's the interesting stuff.
Perfect. Okay, we're all happy with that? Yeah. Anybody else got a question? Richard.
Thank you. I think it was earlier on this year or towards the end of last year, but under the previous administration, the policy committee agreed or approved. Now I forget the precise name of the document, but it was something like residential design guide or design specs. And some of us got very excited about that because it was quite fascinating reading about the sort of specifications that the county will require for road schemes, for example. Does this link in with that? So when we're talking to the developers about the contributions, are we keeping very much in mind how much a particular road within a development, say, is likely to cost, allowing for the particular design requirements that we would like to see, or do they get any sort of wiggle room to get out of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Page 43 of the appendix, which in the developer contribution strategy, sets out discussions relating to transport in the widest sense. And obviously, we're mindful of this, and we're mindful of the highways design guide. So we will ensure that we ask for as much as we possibly can to ensure that we're providing facilities that these new communities need. So yes, it's part of our consideration.
Oh, okay, Richard, because you're coming at the end anyway. Has anybody else got any questions? Councillor Wilmot, I'll bring it at the end.
Thank you, Chairman. Developer contributions, it's a story, or should I say, it's a very strong, sticky issue in our area. Whilst I welcome the replacement of the existing planning obligation strategy, I feel that this is a wasted opportunity to tackle some of the historic problems with developer contributions. Several years ago, up to 300 properties were approved for land off Papwick Lane in Limby. This was on land whilst being in Gedling, several impacted the infrastructure in Hucknall. Bellway Homes promised a new school in Limby, which did not happen, as this council did not insist on it happening anyway. Gedling Council were a little naughty and spent the Section 106 money elsewhere in their borough. Whilst the new residents use our services in Hucknall, they pay their council tax to Gedling. They use our roads, our leisure centres, our parks. This strategy is a missed opportunity to ensure that developer contributions go towards the community impacted by any development, irrespective of borough or district boundaries. What power has the county council got to ensure this happens? And have we held a meeting with Ashfield District and Gedling Borough to discuss this, as this council instructed them to do so via a notice of motion last year?
Right,
Thank you.
okay, I think I can answer some of that, and then I'll bring Sally in for the more technical side. Firstly, when we put in a bid for money, 106 money for a school, for example, on a development, yeah, that's not saying there's going to be a school there. What it's doing is getting money in case there is a requirement for a school. We have to justify that school being built, and the only way we can do that is by our schools' admissions saying that now, because of the requirement, because there's not enough places at the local schools, we now have to do a school. Yeah, so it's not just a case of, yeah, there it is, build a school, because you could end up building schools with no kids in it. So it has to be thought out, and we have to justify it to be actually used for those to build a school or whatever it is, even if it's a care home. We have to justify that actually to happen. So it's not a simple case of, oh yeah, the developers paid the money, Gedling spent it and they shouldn't have done. Yeah, if there's no justification for it, then we can't build the school. Is that right? Am I right there, Sally, aren't I? Yeah, so it's not as plain as you've made out in that statement that you've read out. Okay, so are we happy with the with the answer in terms of addressing that issue? Well, it has. It's told you that it's not. It's told you that when we put in for a school, it doesn't mean to say there's going to be a school there. We're anticipating that there might be, but if school place, because we don't know who's going to move into those houses, we might anticipate it'll be young families. It could be a lot of people in the later life that move in there, and they're not going to have any kids yet, and it might be 30, 40 years before young families move in. So we have to put in case, but we can't just draw it down and say we're going to build a school and it doesn't feed that particular area. So it has to be legally done. Do you want to add anything, Sally? I'm sorry for jumping in, but I want to make it put it across as a councillor rather than as an officer. Yeah,
just to say, Councillor Wilmot, some of historic Section 106 agreements aren't perhaps as tight as we would like to see them nowadays, and that is a reflection of some of the historic ones. They were signed many years ago because large development sites take a long time to come to fruition and for triggers to be met, and ways of doing things maybe 10 years ago perhaps different to today. So things evolve, which is why we're bringing new strategy to you. But an important part of the development of this strategy is the next step, which is when, subject to your approval this afternoon, we will be writing to our colleagues in the districts and saying, look, we're proposing to revise this. What are your thoughts on it? Let us have your comments. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What would you? How can we make it stronger? So the discussions with the districts is an important next step of this document, and I would hope that you would all, that those of you who are Twin Hatters would encourage your colleagues in the districts to look at this and to respond to us.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, I think with your point, Councillor Wilmot, is the whole idea of this is to strengthen it. The whole idea is to try and close the gaps. It's a new committee. I'm the new chairman. These are the things that we're bringing forward because we know historically it's not always been brilliant. We know that. Okay. And so this is part of the process in putting our cards on the table, if you like, in terms of what we would want to happen. Me going around and talking to them and saying, look, we need to make sure that we look after our residents out there and get the money we should be getting from the developers. So it's all part of the big picture, really. If there's an issue between Ashfield and Gedling in terms of 106 money, then that's something you need to take up with Gedling. Yeah, in a different forum to them, really. If they've been naughty and spent it, then I'm sure you'll be able to show them why they shouldn't have done that and resolve it. That's between you and them. Okay, Councillor Shaw.
Chair, I welcome the report. I also welcome this is a draft report, and I accept the reasoning behind the obligations strategy. However, I just wonder how long this is going to be put in place. Because of the government's muted planning reforms that are coming up. Those fourth planning reforms will see the biggest shake-up of the planning and planning review since 1947 under the Town and Country Planning Act. It will also see the government's abandoning of Section 106 and the community infrastructure levy payments and replace them with a national levy. That will favour affluent areas of the UK and leave places like Ashfield, Broxton and Mansfield way behind. Can I ask what preparations there is the council's making for reforms, if these reforms do go ahead, and does the director believe that any changes will reduce the council's ability to obtain contributions towards its services from new developments if these reforms do go ahead?
Okay, thank you. Do you want to take that on, Sally?
Yes, I'd reassure Councillor Shaw the County Council responded to the consultation on the planning white paper, and the response that we submitted was very lengthy. Obviously, we've got this paper in front of you this afternoon. This is for now and the next few months. We have not yet received from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government their overall thinking on the white paper. We've had a few bits and pieces relating to design, but we haven't had their substantive response. When that response is available, we will then be looking at it in terms of our planning service and our developer contributions service. So we will be looking at it when we see it, but we don't want to just sit still and wait for that to come out, which it will do in the fullness of time. We want to make sure that the strategy we've got is as best as we can for that period. We do not want to sit still, but when we have the response to the planning white paper, we will be looking at that very seriously. And if we need to revise this strategy at that stage, we will be bringing it back to you for further consideration.
Okay, happy? You're welcome. Anybody else? Reg?
I don't know what I was going to say, it's sort of been covered, but in the past, historically, the county council and the districts and the boroughs have had a very loose arrangement. In fact, the county had very little to say in some of it. And with this consultation now going forward, does that mean that that loose relationship will become a tight relationship, and that the county will be able to get its due 106 still, or whatever it may be, going forward from new developments, especially to enhance the infrastructures that we need, especially schools?
That is the ambition of the document, and as we've already referred to in the discussion, some of the historic 106 agreements that are out there are not necessarily the best thing for the county council, but we're working with districts and developers to ensure that we get the funding from new development that we do need. I would remind members that developer contributions, these are to ameliorate the impact of new development. Any money collected cannot be used to address existing deficiencies in service.
Are you happy, Reg? Yeah. Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, just very quickly, I mean, Section 106 was something that was thrown at me as a new councillor quite early on with issues in my own division. And it just seems incredible to me that we had one particular issue, which I think people from both ends of the political spectrum in Bassett Law and in my division in Retford ought to ask themselves the question why they weren't taking on board some of the contributions. So anything that simplifies it is great. The only other comment I would make to members is that having had to learn about this and being keen to get involved in some aspects of proposed developments in my division, I've spent some time with Sally and Matt and Neil as a group, and I've got nothing but utter positive praise for them in terms of what they've done to help me understand. And I would just recommend any councillor, if you're not sure, talk to them, or if you've got district colleagues that need some answers, then talk to them, because it's been excellent service that I've had personally. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, we'll have the vote, please. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us on then to item 6, the digital connectivity in Nottinghamshire. Who's talking on this one, and good luck.
That's me, Chairman. So the report highlights the improvements made in relation to digital infrastructure projects across the county, and we do have an exceptional team here that has been working on this programme for a number of years, and as you'll see within the report, has taken the county from where it was in terms of superfast broadband, 78 or 76% coverage in 2011 to where it stands now, which is almost 99% coverage. So I think that's kind of to be applauded in terms of where the team have taken this. Moving forward, the report highlights some of the initiatives that the team are now working on to further progress our digital connectivity. So we're working at the moment with regards to gigabit connectivity, working with colleagues at Openreach, where they are also investing significantly in the county. As well as the county being seen as an exemplar and part of the BD UK Phase 2 programme for gigabit connectivity. The report also highlights the remote properties and rural communities and how we've dealt with that through a voucher system, which was part of a previous policy committee report that was brought to the county council, and again updates colleagues and members around what has been done in relation to that. There's some real innovation that's happened throughout this process. So the report as well talks about the 5G connected forest initiatives with the augmented reality programme there, and also what we've been doing with the 5G digital turbine work and the money that we receive through Building Back Better to help support 5G networks there, which has also helped with businesses. The final part of the report talks about a RAN competition, which is around how organisations and small businesses can take further their research and development in 5G and operate across our network within the county. And this is something that's being led through DCMS. So we're hoping to, we have already expressed an interest, but would like to take that further should we be successful. And that's one of the recommendations that's within the report. So the recommendations are highlighted on page 62 of my pack, and I'm happy to answer any questions, Chairman.
Lovely. Proposed by me, seconded by?
Second that, reserve the right.
Thank you, Reg. Any comments and questions? Councillor Callaghan.
Yeah, for me, some of that's just gone straight over my head, I've got to say. So for me personally, I'd like to have the opportunity to go and see some of this innovative work firsthand, you know, just to get a better understanding, because it does seem quite exciting and, you know, a good thing to be able to do.
Right. Absolutely. I think if we can arrange a visit, we've got a couple of sites. I mean, we've got the one that's at Sherwood Forest, but we've also got the one at the place where they're doing it all at the turbine. Is it the turbine? So if we can organise a day, because I imagine it will be a day to do that, I think that's a really good idea, and I think it'll be good for everybody to see actually the good stuff that's going on in Nottinghamshire. We've got a history in this. When it was 4G, I think we were leading the way as a county in terms of getting it out there to the villages, particularly where there wasn't any connectivity at all. So it's really exciting. For those of you that's never seen augmented reality films, if you'd like to go to Newark, which is the jewel in Nottinghamshire Crown, obviously, where there's Civil War. We've got Civil War augmented reality boards where actually if you hold your iPad up to the board, a film appears going back in time to the 1646 era when we was under siege. So and it's really good. Yeah, and there's about 9 boards scattered around the town at strategic places where something happened there. So it's really interesting to see. You download the app first because the Wi-Fi is not brilliant, but once the app's been downloaded at home, it's really good to see. And you're there at the place where it happened. So I know how good it can be, but it is very much reliant on having the connectivity, and that's what this is all about, I think. So really exciting, to be fair. So somebody's written down that we're going to organise a trip, and I'm sure you'll have great fun organising diaries. But I think it's important that we do go and see. So thank you for suggesting that. Anybody else? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to keep getting on at you. As we all know, that the internet's been really, really important over the last 18 months. Students, the universities, families. And I notice on paragraph 10, page 59, that lists 13 exchanges that have been upgraded with more to follow. Is it possible that you could let us know which others are going to be upgraded? Because Hucknall at times has been horrendous. And I'm speaking parochially. You can get on at 4 o'clock, and by 4:05, you've got the dreaded Wheel of Fortune. That really needs to be looked into, if you don't mind. And could you also have a look at paragraph 6, which mentions 2% of the hard-to-reach properties? Would that be Selston and Underwood as part of that particular 2%? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Shaw, I'm going to actually agree with you. I know this is unusual, so we'd like write it in the diary, please. But yeah, I think we're often told how great broadband and Wi-Fi is in terms of connectivity in Nottinghamshire. I've just spent the morning waiting for BT to come in to sort my Wi-Fi, and I live in Newark, in a town, and it's very frustrating when it doesn't work. And so, you know, and that's me working from home, of which we know there's and I'm self-employed. I've got a job as well as being a councillor, and I rely heavily on my connectivity via that. So it's really important. So you know, absolutely agree. My sister lives in Hucknall, so I know Hucknall very well in terms of that. And it is important that we get it across the whole of the county, and we really push these providers, because it's not just BT, there are other providers as well, and we're working with those providers. But it's really important that we make sure they do what they say they're going to do. Yeah, it's frustrating when you got a system that say you can go to the other end of your garden, and then yet actually in the next room you can't. So it's important that we get that message across, that we need them to raise their game as well. So thank you for that. Anything to add to that in terms of the list and that, Matthew?
No, we can provide that information in terms of the next steps of the and also
yeah, okay, happy with that. Anybody else got any comments or questions? Okay, then all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us on then to item 7, which is the Growth, Infrastructure and Development Group revised staffing structure. Can we start making these headings a bit less, a bit smaller? There's got to be something we can say that's different. But anyway, I think this is really as a result of your comments last time, Kay, in terms of where we had in the meeting about the new post and where it fits within the structure, really. Are you talking on this, Matthew? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so in terms of introducing this, we've seen, as members will know, we've seen a number of initiatives that have come directly through the County Council during the pandemic and more recently, such as the UK Community Renewal Fund and also some of the Levelling Up Fund initiatives, and a significant amount of funding through the work that the team here has done in relation to COVID-19 and the recovery there. So this paper is building on all of those initiatives and making the organisation and the structure fit for moving these initiatives going forward, and being much more of a commissioning organisation of services and of the partners that we work with, to help raise the profile and help enable the economy to recover as we come out of this process. So as part of that, the proposal is that the structure will be expanded and will have some more senior posts within it in order to help support that moving forward. The posts can be met from existing budget resources within my service area, and doesn't impact detrimentally any of the individuals that are currently working within that team, who've actually done an exceptional job during this period of time. I think just one other thing to add, we also have a number of posts within the structure that are grant funded. So again, some of those posts with the grant funding will be lost, but this gives us an opportunity to reshape that moving forward. So the recommendations again are contained within the report on page 68, and the structures are given within the document as part of the appendices as well.
Thank you. Proposed by me, seconded.
Second that and reserve the right.
Lovely, thank you. I think the main message is we can get in, we can be successful in as many of these bids that's going through as we like, but if we can't deliver, then there's not much point putting in for the bid. And I think that's what this is all about. And it's actually going to give us an opportunity to look at what our structure might be once all that finishes. I know some people criticise the fact that the bids, you get the money, you've got to spend it by a certain time, and it's all very fast paced. I understand that, and it is quite difficult for councils to fit in with that because it's not always due to the committee cycles and things like that. However, I think the drive was to get the money back into businesses, get the money back into the economy as quick as possible so it starts having an impact. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, it has had a positive impact in terms of keeping some businesses going that may not have done, about making these projects come forward, which will regenerate areas. So it's a really exciting time, but we've got to be ready and capable and able to do those jobs. So I really support this document. Also, I'd like to put on record my thanks to the officers that have done all that bidding, that have done fit all that criteria, they've done that hard work to make sure that we've been successful with those bids. And it's not just what we've got as when we've bidded, we've also helped the districts and boroughs in their bidding as well. So we've really stepped up to the plate during this pandemic in terms of trying to make sure that we keep Nottinghamshire's economy going. So thank you for that. Any comments and questions? Councillor Cal, what's your name? Sorry, first name, Anne. Sorry, Anne. Anne.
I think this is a good thing that you're doing, but I'd just like to know how you're going to measure some of the outcomes of the posts that you're going to be putting in to say that it's been successful.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to answer that now? Do you want to take some more questions? Up to you. Take some more questions. Councillor Wilmot.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The reality is really that anything that can raise the profile of Nottinghamshire and create better conditions for investment and growth is welcome. It's got to be, hasn't it? Especially if there's new staffing structures can be met within the existing budgets, which you've just told me can be. The reality is that we have to fight for every single penny of inward investment, whether it be the electrifying the Midland main line or extending the eastern leg of HS2 to Towton. What exactly are the plans to raise the profile of the county other than taking on more staff? Also, in paragraph 4 of the report, it states that the Police Department has been able to support 56.8 million of investment in the county. Can this be broken down? And what projects are they? And how? And can you tell me how the council have supported them? And does this include the Gedling Access Road, which we all know is a little bit overspent? Thank you.
Okay. In terms of fighting for the money, of course we do. Everybody, there's a pot of money. Everybody's told the criteria of which they need to meet to get that bid. Yeah, and so we all know what that is. Everybody, every council in the country knows what that is. I think we do particularly well because we've got a lot of things that are ready to go, which always helps. They say shovel ready, but I don't particularly like that that saying. But we've got some really good officers that work really hard and make sure that we fit the criteria in which we have to do for that. So we'll always have to fight for money. It's not a bottomless pit that just goes, oh yeah, you can all have £50 million each. We have to fight for it. In terms of raising the profile for the county and how are we doing that, I think you just need to look in the press. I think you just need to look at some of the posts that our leader, as a member of parliament as well, and the visits he's doing to number 10 Downing Street, to number 11 Downing Street, to ministers, putting our case across to make sure that we get our funding that we should be getting. Yeah, and he's working extremely hard on that to raise the profile of this county. And I think you'd have to be blind not to see that, because it's on every newspaper, it's on all social media about what he's doing, and he's working really hard. Whether you like him or not, whether you like the fact he's an MP or not, is irrelevant. It's working. Yeah, and I fully support what he's doing and what he's trying to do. So yeah, we are raising the profile, and that's politicians' jobs. That's not the officers' jobs. They're there to support the politicians to do that. Yeah, and I think they do an outstanding job in that. So I hope that's answers your question in terms of raising the profile for Nottinghamshire. There's some technical questions in there, which I'm now gladly going to pass over to Matt, who's going to answer them.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just picking up on the point of the values as well. Our staff work in a significant number of ways in contributing to some of those projects, and in terms of business cases that are submitted, and in terms of some of the initiatives that we bid to government for. So, for example, some of that will be related to, for example, the Fusion Initiative, or some of it will be in relation to our development or proposed development at Topwick Hay and the employment uses that will take place there. So there's a lot of work that the economic development team will do as part of those big infrastructure measure projects and programmes which contribute to some of those numbers. In answer to Councillor Callaghan's question in relation to how will we measure success, there are currently a number of things that we are doing that we're reporting regularly back to this committee on, and the chairman has indicated he'll be putting pressure on us in terms of delivery against those. So, for example, the Economic Recovery Action Plan, which we brought another update to this committee on in June, that will form part of the success of these roles. But also in terms of the success in terms of delivery of projects that we're bringing through here, and the funding that we can generate will also be another milestone that we'll obviously be measuring the team against. So those will all be the things that will measure the teams and the post progress against. I guess the only one other thing, some of the initiatives that we get are successful with do carry their own performance indicators, which we'll also measure. So, for example, with the digital connectivity programme, you'll have seen there are measurements that we measure performance against in relation to that, and again, that will be brought back to this committee to report against.
Sorry, Kate, did you put your hand up, indicate to speak? So you're next then. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, but I think Anne's question is well made, and thanks for that response. I mean, you talked about, you know, the leader kind of raising the profile like mad everywhere on social media, and he is, but actually it's pointless unless actually that has a real impact on real people on the street, and I've yet to see a lot of that. Just to kind of qualify that, really. I suppose with this, and I can see how this has grown, and I understand why, the reasons why. The only general comment I'd make is, now kind of seeing the proposed overall structures, there's an awful lot of very senior posts and not so many other posts. I just wonder, is the balance between the senior posts and the management posts right between those, and actually people are actually kind of doing the more frontline work? Because at the moment, I say it looks very top heavy to me. I mean, I'm very happy to understand why that is the case, but it's, yes, as I say,
okay, do you want to
it's
answer
kind of
that?
it's a frontline stuff that to me that's important, how this really impacts on real people.
I think I know the answer, but you go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so some of the posts will be commissioning services on our behalf. So, for example, they'll be using the organisations that are at our disposal. So they won't necessarily have an infrastructure to support them, but they will be managing other organisations in delivery. So, for example, futures in terms of our skills agenda, again, our older adults sort of learning and training agenda, also the Chamber of Commerce in relation to business support. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest that all of these will come with a massive amount of infrastructure, because they actually have external organisations that they'll be working in partnership with to deliver services, and that's how you'll see the impact on our residents. Where we do achieve money from initiatives, so an example being on the digital side of things, there is an infrastructure that we will provide as part of that process, because there isn't necessarily an organisation to manage that on our behalf. So that's where there is a slight difference in some of the structure here.
You happy with that, Kate? I think it's about having the flexibility to and move with whatever comes our way, to be fair. And I think a lot of it as well, if I'm right in saying, is because it's project managed. It has to be of a certain level, a project manager level, to be able to do that. And that's important. That's why we do then get the measurements and fit the criteria in terms of the delivery of whatever it is that we're delivering. Glenn?
No, mine was much the same, because when you look at the structure, Keith, clearly you've got the people and place are the two that stand out, where below them there's no other structure at all.
Yeah.
So those are the two that you're talking about that are actually commissioning and overseeing that. Okay, because when you read the dialogue on it, it talks about needing people there for leadership, etc.
Yeah.
And being in charge of the project. But when you look down, you're thinking, well, who's the leading?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, no, I get it. I absolutely get it.
Could that be done in another way? You know, why do you need a senior when you could probably put an assistant underneath or whatever? But clearly, if you're saying it's got to be at that level, I accept that. Yeah. You know, if that's what you do.
I think it's about matching the skill sets to the projects in reality. So yeah, thanks for that. Anybody else got any?
Can I just make a suggestion? I just wonder if that kind of information could have somehow been put on this. I mean, I know from sitting on other committees, getting the balance right between giving councillors so much information that they can't see the wood for the trees and actually keeping it short is very difficult to get. And I know, but I think this perhaps is just a little bit too cryptic.
Can I just ask you a question before we say yes to that? Because is it dependent on what project we're doing at the time, or dependent on what's below? Yeah, put your mic on.
Thank you, Chairman.
That's what I'm worried about, Kate. So, okay, we'll send you a photograph now of what it is, no problem. But next month it might be different because it's moving.
But at least we'll get the hang of it then.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to stop you getting that. Absolutely, but I just want to make sure that we understand that you can't look at that structure and say, well, why isn't it like that? Because it won't be like that because it's doing something else. Is that fair? Is that a fair point? So if we can pass that out again, absolutely, to everybody in the committee. Yeah, you happy with that? All happy with that? No more comments, questions? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us then on to item 8, the Economic Development Asset Management Performance Report for Q1 Place Core Data Set. Thank you for that heading.
Thank you, Chairman. This isn't actually my report. This is a report from Nigel Stevenson in terms of us reporting on our performance. But I will happily sort of present the report only in terms of saying that hopefully you'll find that it meets with all the performance statistics that we are measured against, and it is within the budget parameters that we've been set as a service. Again, it reports on specific areas. So, for example, the European Agricultural Fund and what work has been done there as part of some of the context to this, as well as the gigabit capable broadband, which we've had a report earlier on. So I wasn't going to go into too much detail other than answer any questions that colleagues might have about our performance.
I'm not too technical by the sounds of it. Okay, proposed by me, seconded.
Second that.
Thank you, Reg. Any comments or questions? Can you put your mic on? Sorry, Dan, I didn't hear you. Okay. No. I think there's some relieved officers in here now that there's no technical questions coming forward. Okay. No comments, questions. Just thank you for the. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Just to say again, and go back to the comment I've just made on the page 81. I can see this is just kind of budget monitoring, and again, a little bit of description, a bit of more of understanding about what's going on here, because I look at this and think, well, actually, this could just do them picking a little bit. And I suppose, I'll leave it at that.
I think best way of that then is go and see one officer and speak to him about it, so you get more of a understanding. If you then feel that you want that to come back to us in more detail like that, then absolutely happy for that. But I don't want to be giving them loads of work that might not be necessary. So if you have a chat with him, if you're happy with the answer, great. If you're not, then we'll make sure that comes back with more detail on next time. Is that okay? Is that a good approach? Okay. Anybody else? Any comments, questions? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us on to item 9 then, which is E. This is an easy title, the work programme. Does anybody talk about that? Matthew?
I think it sets out our plan for the next year, and happy for colleagues to provide any questions and any additions, I guess, to anything that might be in here.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Kate? That's all right. Don't apologise for asking questions. It's good.
2nd of November, it looks quite a heavy agenda, doesn't it? Just saying, I'm just concerned about that. I was a little bit levelling up fund proposals, because clearly that's an overarching kind of type phrase, isn't it? Levelling up. Why is that coming here, and will it go elsewhere, I suppose, is the question, because clearly if it's overarching, it needs to go to policy as well. I suppose that's what you don't see here, is it? You don't see, well, actually, is this coming here for the first time? Is it going elsewhere? No, that.
Yeah. It's got to come to us because we're the delivery arm, if you like, of the Levelling Up Fund. So it's got to have our approval that what we're doing is the right thing. It then goes to policy, because often there's an implication for the council on that, whether it be staffing, whether it be money, whatever. So yes, it has to come to us. I appreciate it's going to be a big agenda next time, but I do not want the committee cycle to slow us down.
No.
I think the EDAM committee is getting a real momentum going in terms of what it's delivering, what its proposals are, and the last thing I want really is to grind to a halt because we're keeping the agenda down. I'd rather this be a 4-hour meeting and we get business done. Yeah, and we actually get business done and approved so we can move on. It's really important that we do. Yeah, we need everything in place so the officers can get on with it, and that structure that you just seen can deliver what we want to be delivered. Does that make sense? Yeah, lovely. Any questions or comments? That's it. That's approved then. Thank you very much for your attendance, and I'll see you on the 2nd of November. Thank you.